Welcome back to the Angel Scrolls. This is Ryan, and I have another incredible forward-speaking video of Danny answering some more questions. Before we get into it, I did not want to turn this into a confession, but in the last video, the angels said that even though I'm not perfect, they still support me. I've often asked them why I was chosen to do this, because I have so many faults. It is true. I have some of the same bad habits that many other people have. For instance, I smoke, and even though the angels have encouraged me many times to quit, I still haven't kicked the habit yet. It seems that each time I quit for any period of time, I start eating more and put on weight, which I use as an excuse to start smoking again. I also like to drink beer in moderation. I watch too much TV and sometimes even get drawn into shows that have explicit sexual content. However, I do not like watching those that are abusive towards women or to anyone as far as that goes. I've been married a couple of times and know I have made mistakes, and there are many things I did or said in my relationships that I wish I could take back. Perhaps this is one of the reasons God chose me. If someone like me could find a way to cleanse my soul from spiritual confusion, then anyone can spiritually evolve. It's not as hard as passing a camel through the eye of a needle, and even though the angels may call me a prophet, I'm not a saint. If some of the things that you hear about me do not live up to your standards for this job, you'll have to decide if I qualify or not. All I ask is you let the angels give you the truth first. Try not to believe everything you hear from others that I have worked with in the past, for the angels have often told me that evil will chase me and interfere as much as it can to try and prevent or discredit this movement. One thing you should know about me is that I am truthful and honest, and I always try to abide by the laws of humanity. Some of the issues I may have are that some of the same laws that I abide by are contradictory to that of the laws of spiritual evolution. However, God lets humanity determine its own laws according to the culture it lives in, and He does not abandon or punish anyone for following these laws, no matter how anti-spiritual some may be, as we are often held captive by things that we have no control over. However, this is not an excuse for me not wanting to make change in my life. We should also remember that change is often determined by the culture that we live in. So if you're wondering what you can do to change in yourself and spiritually evolve, think about some of the things we need to alter in not only our thinking but others, especially when it comes to bias, hate, and lack of compassion for all life. Now let's move on to the first question in this video of Danny's. The question is, in an earlier video I saw your daughter Kayla, who was about 8 or 9 years old. I've been told that you and Linda thought that Christ was going to be reborn through you. Does that mean Kayla is the next reincarnation of Christ? Danny's answer. You will know Kayla loved me really. The eulogy was so nice to me. It's clear Ryan trusts her to bring what they have in common. It's smart to have belief in our promise to bring miracles when our Kayla was born. And my comments. Yes, Linda and I were awakened to the Christ within us. There was a time we hoped Christ could be reborn through us, but the timing was not right, and there was much confusion on my part about what was going on. Perhaps some people may think that to be arrogant of us, but so many incredible things were happening while the angels were communicating. We knew something great was coming. We were later told that this was the religion that Christ was going to be part of when He returns. We definitely are not disappointed with Kayla though. She is very loving and caring and has an incredible amount of compassion for all living things, bugs included. She recently rescued a baby bird that had a badly broken wing, and she's been nursing it back to health for the past month or so. It's a female red-winged blackbird, and her and Simon often play together. Perhaps I will put up a clip from the video of the two birds together soon. So let's move on to the next question. There was a time in the past that Ryan and Vicky, another visionary in the group, had a relationship, and there was much talk from them about joining each other. My question is, what happened with that? And if it wasn't meant to be, then why did the angels encourage them? Also, it seemed that Ryan and Linda got together shortly after he and Vicky split up. So if the angels knew that Ryan and Vicky weren't meant for each other, then why didn't they tell him? Danny's answer. When Ryan had visions of a miracle, he chose Linda to try and build a dream. That must have hurt Vicky. We did encourage some of the things that he did. When God's weapon shall appear, it's the timing that we need here. If it's a mate that you wish for, then some need to make a correction. And these are my comments. This is a difficult one for me to explain, but nonetheless, it's an important part of the history of the beginning of this religion. We have to go back a little bit further, before I met Vicky, to about 2006, when I was still living with my wife and son. Even though my wife and I still cared about each other, we were not happy together, and we often talked about waiting until our son turned 18 before we split up. Even the angels told me that when you are not happy in a marriage or relationship, one should consider to move on from it. Otherwise, you may end up living in an unhappy marriage the rest of your life, or even worse than that, turn an amicable relationship into one where parents don't even want to be friends afterwards. Obviously, that's not good for children in a marriage either. So if you're unhappy in a relationship, even God understands that the smart thing to do is look for someone who you can be happy with, so you can experience love and joy in your life, which enables you to evolve spiritually. At that time, even though the angels were communicating with me on a regular basis, my wife was a devout Catholic, and she had a hard time believing what was happening to me. So I felt alone and needed someone to share my experience with that believed in what I was doing. Shortly after we split up, I met Vicky. When I met her, I was living by myself for the first time in many years. Prior to Vicky, I also had a short relationship with another woman from another forum that I started, but it did not work out either. Both relationships started off quite well, but it wasn't long before I realized that there were too many obstacles to continue our relationships. As a matter of fact, the woman in the first relationship was writing a book and was only interested in the animal intelligence aspect of what was happening. She was even deceptive and did not tell me she was writing a book, which she published later, until after we ended our relationship. When we broke it off, I met Vicky, and we were together for several months. To this day, we are still friends, even though I know it was hard for her. Shortly after that, I met Linda, and it was evident from the beginning that she really believed in what I was doing, and was convinced not only that the budgies were communicating, but the angels were communicating through them as well. Our relationship blossomed very quickly, because we had no problem seeing each other. We both lived in Canada, only about 2 hours away from each other, and Linda and I have been together now for about 12 years. If it wasn't for God and the angels, we wouldn't have fallen in love, and Kayla would not have been born. I think I'm going to change the format a little now, because some of the questions may have shorter answers. and I do not want to break Danny's responses up too much. Therefore, I will ask several questions in a row that may come from different people. Question: is it actually Danny speaking, or are the angels speaking through Danny? Question: in one of Ryan's previous forums, he talked about the visionaries who were connected to the House of David. If they were, then why did they desert the group when Ryan met Linda? Question: why did Ryan decide to take a break from the group? And these are Danny's answer. You've heard Danny channeling the angels. Not everybody remembers. We chose members who were relatives for God. What we passed was from a time we evoked the miracle. We had to believe they were coming with mutual faith. They could not believe God was in their life. Ryan saw the passion they had, which did not compare to his. Are my comments. We learned much from the angels while we were in a group of about 12 people. A considerable amount of the lessons were about developing relationships. When I met Linda, both of us were homeless, looking for work, and for about a month or so we stayed at my sister's. During this time we decided that we needed to get to know each other and concentrate on getting work and a place to live, etc. I think some of the visionaries were starting to doubt me as well. So even though we did not desert the group, Linda and I remained quiet a majority of the time. When we came back a few months later, there was hardly anybody in the group that communicated with us anymore. Some were upset at what happened with Vicky and how quickly Linda and I established a relationship. One of the visionaries, who I had known for many years, more or less took it upon herself to reorganize all the transcriptions and proclaimed herself as a prophet and apostle. Even though a couple of the people still remained, the group fell apart. Linda and I were encouraged by the angels to start a different group where I worked on transcribing our own dreams and visions for the next 5 years or so. And shortly after that, we developed the Angel Scrolls website. Okay, let's move on with some more questions. Why did Ryan lose a majority of the visionaries in his group so fast? And why did he start another forum when there was so much information in the first one? Danny's answer. Many of the things he felt resulted when, and I left that blank because I didn't want to say the person's name, friends were leaving. So all we had was entirely for Ryan. The next question. I saw the post that people were saying about him in another forum, and it seemed like they were discussing reasons why they decided to leave. Danny's answer. They did a fake meeting to reveal they weren't for him. It's true, every member remembered something he tried to control. In part of every act, surely there's somebody who's bound to take objection to what's merely connected to a philosophy that will bring pressure. And here are my comments. Yes, I somehow got a link to the forum and saw what they were saying about me, and it upset me quite a bit. I think I let them know I was not happy about it, but I often had to take a leading role when I thought the forum was going in the wrong direction, and this may have upset some. I also made mistakes, and my connection to the angels had not fully developed at the time, especially when I experienced confusion. So there may have been some issues with the transcripts as well. People have to remember how important this was at the time. We were the first people to establish communications with not only another species, but the angels, and I was being told that this was going to be very important for humanity. So I tried to steer people away from activities in the forum that brought our interests away from what the angels were trying to teach us. Maybe I was wrong, but I've learned much since then, and even more incredible things have happened after they left. For example, Mailer and Danny came to me. After you hear this presentation, I recommend you go back to presentation 14 of Mailer, where he clearly speaks about Sigmund Freud and various other important things. Here's the next group of questions. Question. At one point, there were some t-shirts made to have a fundraising campaign for the work you were doing. What happened to the money raised at that time? Danny's answer. A lady will come from the nearest country, and she will vow to the knowledge that Ryan set up some charitable function, and then she said it was her work. That's something I think about often. The next question. What did this lady not want people to know about the work Ryan was doing? Danny's answer. And for the first time, you have a forum for meeting God's angels, and it's spiritually connected to every meeting. Question. I feel bad that I listened to others and left the original forum. If I came back, would Ryan and the angels welcome me? Answer. When it's something from God, you've got contemporary redemption, and we will rejoice. It's true someone doesn't want to be at risk if something helps them connect it to a lie. And here are my comments. Yes, I remember when someone came from the US and said she was going to get some t-shirts made and sell them to make some money for the group. That was the only time I know that either myself or someone else tried to raise money in this way for the research. However, she said that the function did not go over very well and she barely made the money back on the t-shirts she bought. After it was finished, she sent me a box of about 20 t-shirts and said she could not sell them. At that time, I did not know she was only interested in promoting the intelligence of budgies and not the work I was doing. She had a budgie that spoke very well, and I translated many recordings for her. I don't believe that she wanted people to know that I believed the budgies had a spiritual connection to the angels either. When she published her book, I don't think she even mentioned my name after I spent hundreds of hours working on translations of her budgie. I didn't even read it, so I don't know what the content was. I have always been forgiving and acceptive to bringing back any of the first visionaries, even if they didn't say very nice things about me. As a matter of fact, I've asked one person in particular to come back twice after she was asked to leave when she began to cause issues on previous occasions in the group. The condition was she would not repeat the same things. Unfortunately, when she did come back, the things that she caused problems with in the past repeated and even became worse. So I had to more or less disassociate myself from her. She is now running a separate group that relates to the work I'm doing, using much of the material that was taught from the transcriptions I did. Next questions. How can you convince me that you're telling the truth about Ryan when others say negative things about him? Danny's answer. We will bring knowledge if you're accepting such hate. Question. So do we just ignore the people who can't believe that the angels are speaking? Danny's answer. There are some people who don't have any and really want to have faith. The next question. If I have angels in my life, will they be talking about the same things you are? Danny's answer. If your future has angels, they are meant to and truly are carriers of this message to get action. You done, Danny? And these are my comments. When you tell lies about someone else to benefit your own self, then that is bearing false witness and a form of hate we all should avoid. I've worked with people and even had bosses in the past that use the divide and conquer philosophy to manage. That means they try to put people against each other by telling this person said that about them, etc. So in the end, the only one that is trusted is the liar. That is until they outright get caught in a lie. But even then, if they're good at it, they can work their way out of it as well. There's no doubt that if you have angels in your life, they are concerned not only for your future, but the future of humanity. And what we learn from them here is something God wants us to know. Spiritually, most of us know the problems that exist in our society today. But the question is, are we willing to unite in a peaceful and loving way to help reverse some of the evil that's rampant in the world today? There's only one question in this next part. I have a small family and a few friends. If I start believing in something like this, my friends and family may think I'm crazy. What can you say that can help to prevent that from happening? Danny's answer. When you don't have much family, then you must get some you can count on here. We need to confide in a few. Why? So it makes life easier in a time when work can support the evidence the earth needs lots of prayers. Next question. What kind of philosophies will you be teaching? Answer. There are mounting philosophies in which will preserve the quality of life that most want. Question. Do very many people believe in this? Answer. There are lots of people who have faith in this Budgie project. Question. Can we resolve things for God? We can channel a meeting with God. Heaven will choose the fountain where we can drink. And my comments. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that blame God for everything bad that happens in the world. Perhaps understanding the spirituality and reasoning of God through the testimony of His angels can help people to reverse this kind of thinking. God is not capable of creating anything evil in this world. However, once God does create something in love, He gives it the choice to evolve in its own way. Perhaps that is why the angels have not given up on me yet, because even when I do not follow the direction that they give me, they still always come back strong as ever to encourage me as they did before. It's wonderful to know that we are not being judged or abandoned as long as we try to stay on the right path of love and compassion. Okay, let's move on to the next questions. Seems like this all started with Victor the Budgie. Can you tell me if Victor knew the angels were speaking through him? Danny's answer: we offered something to a budgie who experienced the feelings we have, and Ryan drew it out from them. Next question: why did you choose a budgie to bring this message? Danny's answer: and we'd like you to believe that it's plausible evidence for God talking. God, he had adorned him with a special mission, and he'll let the dream come true. And these are my comments. I'll never forget the day that I was sitting by Victor's cage and expressing my views about God and religion. I told him that I was confused how the God in the Old Testament could be responsible for some of the things that they said he did. At the time, I knew Victor was communicating intelligently, but I had no idea if he would understand the concept of God. I believe God brought this message through a budgie for a few reasons. First off, God wanted the world to know that some animals are far more intelligent and sentient than most people think and believe. The second reason is that if he channeled this only to a human who says that God is speaking to him, then most people might think that it's just an overactive imagination. There are many mediums these days that say they are connected to the spiritual world, but there's always lack of belief from mainstream science that they really are. Finally, God needed a medium that other people could witness and hear the miracle for themselves. We also know that most budgies are incredibly loving and spiritual in nature, and this connection is something they have had since the beginning of time. So for the most part, this connection has not been clouded or totally lost, as it has been for most humans. Well, we should be getting pretty close to the end now, so let's do the next batch of questions. If this is such a miracle, then why aren't the recordings easier to understand? Danny's answer: we have to say, if you want very perfect recordings, you must seek a perfect source. You might want to take the challenge more spiritually. And this is another question by Danny himself. Can you bring solace even if you avoid enemies who fear encouragement? And Danny's answer: there's nothing in our future that shows that they aren't open to spirituality in a new way. And personally, I'm glad that they are, or you are hearing, is connecting to us. The next question: it takes a lot of practice and concentration to hear the recordings as Ryan translates them, and I'm only starting to hear about 50%. Sorry to say, but that means I'm only halfway convinced, and often still wonder, what is your real purpose for communicating to us in this way? Danny's answer: believe that the way we do it has a purpose. Belief for me can take a long time. Until we pass on the knowledge, that's not insulting me here. And here are my comments. Right now, I think part of the miracle is that I'm the only one that can translate these and put captions to them so that others will be able to understand them. especially the reversals. The reasons for this is that God and the angels have worked with me for about 20 years and trust me to translate what they are saying. They do not want other people who do not have the same amount of skill and experience to corrupt what they are teaching us. We've had that happen before, and it seemed like the person who was doing it did more harm than good and almost made a mockery of the work we were doing. So that is definitely one of the issues that may come up in the future. If someone posts one of their own translations in the forum, we unfortunately have to ask them not to and take it down. If it gets to a point where God and the angels trust someone else's interpretation enough, they will let me know, and I could work with them. This may be something that happens in the future, for I will need others helping me, I think. Lastly, one of the things we have to be careful of is the people that come pretending to be friends and encouraging what we are doing, only later to cause issues when they get a chance. Even though the angels will know who these people are and what their intentions are, they usually will not let me know until they are going to do something to cause us problems. Therefore, even the ones who are disguised as friends will have the same opportunity to learn and evolve in their understanding if they can open up spiritually. So some who may come as enemies may eventually be some of our best visionaries and true friends in the end. So let's move on to the next batch of questions. If we know that some are going to come to cause problems, what would someone have to say or do to Ryan to cause him to ban them from the forum? Danny's answer. They might say, I challenge one of your current stories that I attest. It may only inspire an evil person that cannot talk to God without Ryan's spirit channeling. Another question. So does that mean Ryan will do the wrong thing when he's being challenged? Danny's answer. The spirit in you has always connected to doubt. When there's pressure, which person is more worthy? Man cannot slaver in fear. Next question. There's going to be someone who makes a comment in the forum that they shouldn't. Why don't the angels respond instead of Ryan? Danny's answer. If you're asking me to lecture on change, everything that Danny relays projects from heaven. The next question. Can you tell me why you have come now and why you are helping Ryan with this new religion? And this is Danny's answer. Many will agree throughout history that the reason we helped Ryan was a chance for us to have much more action while approaching a transverse during our time. Now we have come to let you know that everything gets much better. During your life here, you're gathering experience of all sorts. That's helpful. My comments. Well, I thought this was getting close to the end, but I think there's one more set of questions after these. To tell you the truth, the first time I encountered issues in a forum, there were many times that I may have reacted wrongly, but I always tried to be patient and fair with people. One of the problems I had was that if I did not respond to something negative someone said, then I felt it may affect the way others were thinking as well. There were those who would try and downplay what the angels said, or even respond with a statement that contradicted them. When that happened, I tried to let them know that they were demonstrating a lack of respect for what was being taught by them. It would almost be like a student that would contradict everything the teacher was saying, and some did it just to slow down the teaching or put doubt in the minds of others. So it seemed like there were a few individuals who thrived on pressuring me into making comments that made it look like I was trying to control the conversation or unfairly react. I don't believe that I'm going to have that same issue in the future, because I'll be able to use the presentations of what the angels have talked about as more sources for some of the responses I'll be giving. So in all actuality, the angels will already have all the issues covered beforehand that will help me when I run into diehard skeptics. When it comes to why this is happening now, I can see many reasons. For one, the technology of reverse recordings really only became digitalized about 20 years ago. Before that, you'd have to use a cassette recorder and reverse it manually, go over and over it, and that's not easy to do. Audio programs with captions were also another tool that happened around the same time. I was one of the first people in the world to begin captioning what budgies were saying and putting up the recordings on the internet. These days, great knowledge to help confirm what is being taught is easily accessible on the internet. It's also an important tool that can be used in this religion as well. Finally, more people are using the internet for spiritual growth than they have in the past, and some would rather go to a forum instead of church to learn about religions and communicate with those that have the same spiritual interests as they do. In the final part of this recording, Danny says, "Ryan, we'll never finish what God is only beginning. All of you surely have a chance for all the secrets we pass to people. During this campaign, we observe you, and there's a plan at work right now. What's said here will really attract many of these answers that are as good as symbols. There will be many symbols learned." Now this is a long one. You done there? That sounded like some kind of conversation you had going there, Danny. Okay, I better stop. Alright. Wow, that sounded like you were having a conversation with somebody. Maybe that'd be the first time we can get having a conversation with the angels. That'd be very nice. Ryan's comment. I love the part where I said that it was a long one and Danny responded with, "Ryan, we'll never finish what God's only beginning." You may have noticed that I didn't put any questions in for that last part. But if someone asked a question, they should be able to figure out when Danny answered. At the very end, Danny says, "The answers are full of symbols and we shouldn't forget them." In the dream transcriptions, we learned many symbols that related to this religion, and all my budgies were gifted at using symbolic messages. That could be another reason why God chose them to pass on these messages, because it is so natural for them. So the next presentation will be the reverse of this one, and I hope you enjoyed what Danny and the angels had to say. This completes this presentation. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to join us, you can come to theangelscrolls.com and click onto the forum link at the top, where we will be adding the newest presentations. Bye for now.